Canada's military finds itself facing budget cuts of an estimated $1 to $2.5 billion. As Andrew Leslie just described, he thinks this is a golden opportunity for our military to transform into a leaner, more efficient and effective force. Is it possible for Canada to fight more with less? Joining us to help answer that question from the nation's capital, Stephen Saidman, Patterson Chair in International Affairs at Carleton University, and with us here in studio, Janice Stein, TVO's Foreign Affairs Analyst and Executive Director of the Munk School of Global Affairs at the U of T. Janice, good to see you. Stephen, first time on the program. Nice to have you there in the nation's capital. I want to just start by reading something that Canadian Press reported the other day and take it from there. A set of estimates tabled in Parliament on Monday ahead of this spring's federal budget shows the Harper government anticipates the overall defense spending will shrink in the coming year to $17.9 billion. That's down $2.3 billion from what was actually spent in 2011-2012. Let's unpack that a bit if we can. Janice, what do you think the effect of a cut of that size will be?
That's a significant cut, Steve. That's, as you just said, 10% of the overall budget.
A little more, actually.
And it's a little more. And actually, when you think about this budget, you need to understand with the defense budget, like every other budget, so much is wrapped up already. One, in salaries, which you cannot cut, and two, in long-term capital commitments, which are made over time. So when you've got to cut this amount out of a budget and your discretionary spend is not great, that can really hurt, principally in two areas, really. First of all, in readiness. So your capacity to move on a dime, to deploy people in any kind of crisis goes down. And the second area where our militaries do this over and over and over again in a crunch like this, they cut back on training. And that's short-term gain for long-term pain.
Stephen, the effect of these cuts in your view?
Well, Canada couldn't even afford what it had planned to do, even if it wasn't cutting the budget. That the choice to recapitalize the Navy and buy the F-35s and do everything else to get the Canadian military into the 21st century was unaffordable at $20 billion, not to mention $18 billion. So it's going to be really tough on the things that Janice talked about, that the Canadian forces will not be able to train, they will not be able to practice. It's going to really cut into their ability to do what their job is, which is to be ready for whatever contingency that comes up.
So, Stephen, if they told you, come on in here, take a look at what we're doing, and you make the cuts, where would you make the cuts?
Oh, that's a tough question, but since I've been here, I guess my answer would be I'd first start looking at things that don't work and things that aren't really all that Canada already underprovides. So I'd say take a look at the submarines. Submarines are very expensive. It's not clear what 4 submarines buys a country this size. Take a look at other aspects. I mean, the real choice is that Canada's got to choose which elements of the military it really needs down the road to be 21st century. Does it need an army that's that level, an air force that's level, or a navy that's level? It can't do all three.
Can you, Janice, cut the defense budget and not have it affect readiness?
I really don't believe you can.
Can't you just say we're going to be ready for some things but not others, and therefore a cut can work?
I think it's really hard in practice, and every time I've seen it, it's always affected readiness. But let's bump that question up just one bit. In order to do what you just suggested, Steve, you have to have an overall strategic vision. And you have to say, yes. And that's really key. You have to say, okay, we cannot do it all. We actually can't do more with less. And you know what? We can't do the same with less, by and large. Although I do agree, and you're going to come to this, I do agree with Andy Leslie that there are headquarters savings that we can make, but I don't think it's 10% of the budget. And once it's not, we then have to cut operations. In other words, we have to ask ourselves the really hard question: what are we not going to do over the next 15 years?
I guess we're not going to be a general all-purpose military anymore. Is that right?
I don't believe we are, but here's a hot button issue for me all these years. I do not believe we have been a general all-purpose combat military for the last 35 years. Nobody, at senior levels on the military side of the house is willing to acknowledge. But in fact, we've cut capabilities. for 30 years. We are not an all-purpose force, but we like to tell ourselves that we're an all-purpose force. And the way we make these decisions, Steve, is in the worst possible way. It's called politics. You log roll among the three services. Okay, Air Force, you're getting that one. I'm in the Army, I'm getting this one, and you in the Navy, you're getting that one. And there's not an underlying strategic vision about what our military should look like in the 21st century.
Stephen, if we are not an all-purpose military today, what are we?
Well, Canada can provide some capabilities, and it showed in Afghanistan that it's willing to do something that a lot of its allies aren't willing to do, which is fight on the ground. In Libya, it was willing to drop bombs, which a lot of our NATO partners weren't willing to do. And so the question that needs to be asked is not just for today, but not for tomorrow, but all these decisions will be generational decisions, will constrain leaders 20 years down the road. So it really depends on what Canada wants to do. If it's about making a difference in the world, one of the things that Canada can do that other countries aren't willing to do is engage in combat. But that is politically costly. It sacrifices the ability for the Harper government to control the message. Operations are incredibly expensive. So that might be the easiest choice, is to say we're not going to do any ground operations anytime soon, which means cut the size of the military quite significantly by carving into the land forces. The other choice is to take seriously that capability and then go with a second string Air Force. But whatever choice made, it has to be a choice that is made with an eye to the future rather than just kicking the can down the road, because with these cuts, there's no way that you can just simply defer the future, and hope to have everything. It's just not possible.
Stephen, can I get your take on the F-35? If we don't go ahead with the F-35, does that consign us to being, in your words, a second-rate Air Force?
Not necessarily, because actually most of the countries that have signed up for the F-35 are facing this dilemma themselves, and the F-35 may not be the best piece of equipment out there, but it is certainly the most expensive, not just to buy, but to operate. And that's the real problem for these budget cuts, is that all of the new equipment, whether it's Navy, Army, or Air Force, is not only more expensive to buy than the last generation, but more expensive to operate. And so that really constrains the choices down the road. You can't have it all. So the question is, if you want to engage in the world, one way to do that is to focus on the Army, and then for the Air Force to focus on just air defense. You don't need to have stealth to defend Canada's airspace. You just need to have very good fighter planes. You don't have to have planes that are very good at striking distant targets through difficult air defenses.
Janice?
Yeah, Steve's quite right. Let's just push it further. In numbers, how many of these expensive planes do we really need? And again, this is a generational decision. So, reading this morning that you and I, Steve, are going to have our own remotely piloted drone in the next 5 years. We're adopting, we're down. The iPhone technology is now, and that the real challenge is navigating through airspace and controlling this. It's inconceivable that 15 years from now, and because we're buying for 30 years with the F-35, and it's a huge amount of money, that those planes will not be operating in a totally different combat environment where precision strikes by much less expensive vehicles will be entirely possible. If it were me personally, that's an area where I think, given our dual desire to engage in the world and survey and know what's going on at our borders and our oceans, we might not need the number of the state-of-the-art fighters that we are currently committed to buy.
Well, as both of you know, budget cuts tend to focus the imagination.
They do.
Andy Leslie was on earlier in the program talking about a new forcing function, as he called it, with the Canadian military.
Yeah.
We're going to roll a little clip of what he had to say and then come back and chat. Roll tape, please.
There's a new forcing function arising, and that is budget reductions. Now, ordinarily, generals would huff and puff and say, no, it's not a good idea to reduce the monies allocated to any military force, because you always want to essentially better prepare and equip your troops for what's going to happen tomorrow. And no one, quite frankly, can predict with certainty where we're going to go next, be it home or overseas. Having said that, the forcing function of budgetary reductions has the potential to be an excuse to transform the Canadian forces, in certain cases, from what they're doing now, the way they're structured, the process they have, the amount of money they spend on overhead, into something leaner, better, faster, smarter.
Stephen, do you agree with him?
I like his optimism. I'm very skeptical because there's a lot of politics behind this stuff. That right now the plans are to build a lot of ships in 2 different ports on a lot of planes, and if you choose not to build some of these things, it's going to cost jobs, and then that will be politically costly. So I fully expect that Canada will continue to be committed to the ship building project because those jobs are the most visible, and losing those jobs will be the most visible for this government or for the next government. I think the jobs that are associated with F-35 are a little less visible in terms of what they might lose. They're more imaginary or proposed as opposed to seeing the dock workers. So I think they matter politically, but a little bit less. In terms of shifting everything and being able to get everybody out of the headquarters, again, out of the headquarters to do what? If they're manning ships, manning artillery, manning planes, those are things that are going to be very costly. I think that the real costs, whether they're in headquarters or in the field, the personnel costs are very, very expensive as well. So if you want to cut the budget, it means smaller, not just where they are, whether that's in Ottawa or downrange, but wherever they are, they cost a lot of money. So the military is going to have to get smaller.
Janice, a chance to be leaner, better, faster, and smarter, he said.
Well, that's a perfect world, right? And we know there is no perfect world, but I think there's really, in Annie Leslie's report, there's really one key message. Our overheads are too high, right? There's too much headquarters and not enough in the field. That's not a unique problem to the Canadian Forces. You're not unique either to, we went through this in CETA, for example, 3 years ago.
International Development Aid.
International Development Agency. 90% of our people were then in Ottawa, 10% in the field. That really didn't work. So I think Andy has a point. And one issue, for example, is about procurement decisions, which is front and center on the government's radar screen right now. We have those kinds of decisions now being done by 3 of the forces. Each of them have separate policy shops and separate procurement. It's conceivable, for instance, that might work better if they were integrated in one shop, and they could be 1/3 the size, and we might get better coordinated decisions out of that.
You're starting to sound like Paul Hellyer now, back in the 60s, unifying the forces.
That's exactly what I'm sounding like. All right, so I think there is some give on that. I think that the harder part, though, because the real budget cuts can come only in 2 places. Cut back on capital procurement, cut back on personnel. There's no other way. And those are going to be hard-fought political fights. There was an interesting report, Steve, just worth mentioning, just came out by Tom Jenkins about procurement, in which he said, let's look more carefully at procurement to see what creates jobs in this country, what creates what he calls key industrial capabilities.
Well, let me follow up on that with you, Stephen. This may be hopelessly naive, but I always thought that the military you wanted because you needed an ability to either project power in the world or defend the homeland or whatever.
Sure.
But it wasn't a make-work project. It wasn't a this is about jobs for the boys project. Am I wrong about that?
Yeah.
Well, in the United States, it's always been that way, that the military is a huge jobs program, and so you have the F-35 built in 45 states. But precisely because of that, I'm very wary of looking at the military as a jobs program in terms of buying stuff for the military, being based on what's best for the Canadian economy, because really the best place to put the money if you want to do things for the economy is not put it in the military, but to give it to people like Janice and myself, because the universities are much better generators of jobs, multipliers in the economy than the military. But then you end up, if you make it a jobs program and you have politicians' jobs depend on providing jobs for their ridings, then you end up getting decisions that are hard to revise, that you can't kill programs because every politician depends on it for getting reelected. And the other thing is that if we're currently buying things that are made abroad, it might be because they're better and cheaper. So if you end up building them in Canada, while that might create more jobs in Canada, it's like most protectionist legislation, which is you end up spending more money And this is exactly the wrong time to do that. Maybe if things were flush, you could say, well, we can build a Canadian plane. It'll cost 10% more, but it's worth it for the jobs. Well, you can do that when things are flush. You can't really do that right now when you're already planning on cutting the budget as it is.
So, just a little correction here. I think we actually can do better, Steve, than we're doing on this issue. What the Jenkins report advocates is developing niche capabilities and niche technologies. Any plane has thousands of component parts. Clearly, if we did a better job, we could identify what Canadian sectors, whether it's electronics, avionics, it's not the plane, but the piece of the plane that we could actually specialize in to become smart. So smart defense is not only about cutting, but it's about developing smarter capacities. We could integrate into a global supply chain because that F-35 is produced by many firms in many countries, let me put it to you that way. I don't think we've been sharp enough and keen enough in thinking through these kinds of things in the past. So it's not about jobs, but it's developing the kind of capacity which can actually spin off into the domestic economy.
Let me try something.
The United States does that
Sure.
all the bloody time.
Sure. Let me try something heretical here, and that is find out what the people want. Eleanor Sloan and Greg Lyle, writing in Canadian Defense and Foreign Affairs Institute, or speaking to them rather, in March of 2010, had the following to say. A majority of Canadians, 57%, see both a military role and a humanitarian role for the Canadian military, whereas 1 in 3 believes the military should concentrate on its ability to deploy in humanitarian missions. When asked about military roles and spending on the Canadian forces, a majority of Canadians, 58%, thought we should spend what the military needs to conserve its warfighting capabilities, its humanitarian capabilities, and to keep defending the homeland. Stephen, it sounds like, admittedly, a snapshot of public opinion, but it sounds like the public is very pro-military and wants us to keep spending what it takes to get the job done. What do you say to that?
Well, the first thing to keep in mind is right now the budget cuts that Canada is facing is different from what Europe is facing, what the United States is facing. Europe is facing a real fiscal crisis. The United States is facing a real political crisis. Canada, these budget cuts right now are not absolutely necessary. The Canadian economy is doing well. Its deficit problem is not nearly severe. So this is really a politically constructed budget challenge. Having said that, the survey that you reported on is typical of most surveys, which is people like to have everything they want and they don't want to pay for it, right? They don't want to, if you had questions in there about taxes, I'm sure they would say they like to have tax cuts. And so we like to have everything and not pay for it. The reality down the road is that everything is going to get more expensive, including personnel costs. Operating abroad is incredibly expensive. The easiest way to cut the budget is a decision Harper already made, which is to get out of Afghanistan. I don't really see Canada getting involved any place anytime soon in any size, in part because of the budgetary ramifications. So the survey is nice that the public is very favorable towards the military these days, but they also want things that we just simply cannot provide. There have to be hard choices made, and the government has to do a better job of justifying the hard choices and making them.
A poll like that absolutely drives me crazy. It really does.
What part of it?
We need to ask questions in which we give people choices. Do you want to continue present levels of spending on the military and cut our healthcare budget?
Because it's either or?
It's either or, right? Everybody, if you ask them, do you want to maintain healthcare spending? Yep. Do you want to maintain education spending? Yes. Do you want to maintain military spending? Yes.
Well, that's okay as long as you ask the next question, which is, do you want your taxes raised to pay for it all?
But we need to be, that's right, but we need to put it in a context of a choice. And the poll, and that's a biased poll if you don't put the question in the context of a choice. It's useless, frankly, Steve. And the only thing I would say out of it...
I'm going to say this because Greg Lyle is going to be on this program in a couple of weeks, and I don't want him...
He's probably going to be furious with me, but I'll say there's one piece...
But hang on, that's not the only question I'm sure that he asked. That's the only one that we've plucked out to
No,
but
everybody. When you ask the question that way, it's meaningless. There's one value in that poll. I read the whole poll, and that is Canadians are committed to being able to deploy forces for humanitarian purposes. That's true. And what that tells us is we need... a unit that's ready, that's fast, that we can deploy. So when an earthquake happens, we're able to join the international community.
But that explains why we didn't go to Mali.
That wasn't an earthquake.
There's not that much support for another foreign adventure,
well,
if I can put it that way.
There's a deeper reason here. It's not that clear that sending in military forces is the most effective thing we can do in a lot of natural disasters.
Okay.
But you tell Greg, next time he asks about military spending, Stephen, I want to see an either-or question.
I'm going to play this clip back to him and see what he says about this. Okay. Let me read something else here. This is from May of 2012, an analysis by Philippe Lagasse and Peter Jones in Defense and Security Analysis.
Right.
Here's what they write. Though the CF, the Canadian Forces, are relatively small, they are highly professional. Moreover, successive Canadian governments of different political persuasion have shown that Canada is amongst a select group who are prepared to place their forces on the front line of alliance actions. In the Balkans, in Afghanistan, and more recently in air operations over Libya, Canada has shouldered a disproportionate share of the fighting, while other and often larger allies have shied away. If Canada's military capabilities were to be diminished, either by choice or by a gradual whittling away of its capability through sustained underfunding, NATO risks losing the capabilities of one of its members who is prepared to fight. Stephen, agree or disagree with that?
Well, I just finished writing a book on NATO and Afghanistan. It was very clear that Canada had much more influence over operations than, let's say, Germany, because it was willing to put troops into combat. So I think there's a lot to what Lagasse and Jones have to say about this, that Canada did have a fair amount of sway in the mission. But at the end of the day, the question is are the Canadian people willing to pay the cost for that? The survey that you mentioned earlier was about humanitarian missions. Well, that involves just what? Rescuing people, feeding people? I think the Canadian people might have lost their stomach for shooting and being shot at, which is what the support for getting out of Afghanistan was telling us in the polls a couple of years ago.
Well, in fairness,
I do think that
I should add this. They may have lost their appetite for shooting and getting shot at after 11 years of it, but that doesn't mean that they wouldn't do it again somewhere else.
Well, to be fair, that was only really after 5 years of it. The Afghanistan mission for Canada was really a 5-year endeavor from 2006 to 2011. Before that, the casualties were very low. The popularity dropped off once Canada got involved in Kandahar and was engaged in serious combat. Whether that was because they were taking casualties or causing casualties, it's hard to tell from the existing surveys. But the important thing is that Canada got a lot of influence from that. And if it chooses to specialize, that might be one way to think about the specialization. What's going to give it added value in NATO? What's going to give it added value in the world? Because, again, it really cannot afford to be a general purpose force and be able to do all things for all endeavors.
No, I hear you on that, but let me follow up with Janice. You know, our friend Eric Margulies has been here, and you've had numerous debates with him in the studio where he says he doesn't want to return to the days where, as he put it, Canadian troops were glorified daycare workers going around the world and social workers, I think was the way he put it. He still thinks that we're a post-World War II fighting force that needs to be able to project power and pursue its interests as needs be. Are you saying we shouldn't be that anymore?
No, I'm not saying that at all. I'm saying we have a real choice to make, and here's where I agree with Steve. And let me go further. The fact of the matter is, somebody's going to call this Prime Minister or the next Prime Minister over the next decade. Going to pick up the phone and say, we need you. And the Prime Minister...
We need your boots on the ground.
We need your boots on the ground. And the Prime Minister is going to want to go because allies are there.
And then he's going to call his Chief of Defense Staff
and say,
can I do this?
Can I do this? And the Chief of the Defense Staff will say, whoa, this is really tough. But he's not going to resist the pressure. And we're going to ramp up military spending late and in an uncoordinated strategic way. So the real challenge for Canada is to decide now, for the next 15 or 20 years, where and how do we want to be able to engage internationally? Because the call will come. Is it at sea? Is it with some rapidly deployable forces that we integrate and we provide the lift capability for them so we can move them fast? Is it in the air? My personal least favorite, because those capabilities are fairly widely diffused. Which way, when, and how generically are we going to say to NATO, hey, you can count on us for this, but not for that?
Are the political and military leaders of this country wrapping their heads around that debate adequately in your view?
They hate that debate. They
so
hate
they're
that.
not.
Let me exempt the Prime Minister from this, who I actually think has a strategic view and would like to encourage that discussion. But generically speaking, they hate it, and they hate it for the same reasons the universities hate it, hospitals hate it, everybody hates it. Because when you do this, you rip the system open, you start fighting inside.
Turf wars.
You start huge turf wars, they bleed out into the open, and they get out of control. So organizations that are heavy, especially on the top, usually avoid these discussions. We've been brilliant in Canada at avoiding these discussions for 30 years.
That's not a compliment.
No, it is not. And the chickens may be coming home to roost at this point, because here's where Andy Leslie is right. Austerity forces decisions.
Yeah. Stephen, can I get your view on whether you believe the political and military leaders of the country have their heads adequately wrapped around this?
I don't think they do. I think one of the key dynamics in the government lately has been to deny reality, to deny the fact that there are choices to be made, that everything's been fine until they're pushed to finally recognize that maybe the F-35 is really expensive. I think this government was always very, very defensive. Rather than making choices, it's been trying to avoid facing these difficult decisions. They're still acting like they're a minority government. They're a majority government. Let's make some decisions. They can impose reality upon the military through the budget. If they really want to make big strides, figure out a strategic vision, maybe say we have a land force that's second to none, invest in that and cut back on the planes and the ships. Or if they wanted to defend Arctic sovereignty and all the rest, you don't need a large army to defend the Arctic. You need planes and the ships. Focus on that. Make a choice. I'm very doubtful that this government, which is so concerned about message management, so concerned about avoiding really tough decisions like this, that I just think they're going to kick the can down the road until, well, it's somebody else's problem.
Janice, in our last 30 seconds, would you agree, though, that the days of Canada being peacekeeper to the world, but that's it, that's not coming back?
No, that's done for, by the way, because the world doesn't want peacekeepers in the way that they did in the 60s and 70s. That world is long gone. I think, Steve,
including the insurgents.
Yeah, I
right.
think we've got two big imperatives. It's to know what's doing over our airspace and in the Arctic, and that's really important. How do we survey that? And there are cheaper solutions to that. And then to figure out how we are going to engage with our allies, and so that we get some decent burden sharing across, where we specialize and we push our partners to specialize too. That's the big challenge.
Gotcha. Stephen Seidman in Ottawa, the Patterson Chair in International Affairs at Carleton University. We thank you for being on the line from the nation's capital. And of course, Janice Stein here in our Toronto studios, TVO's own foreign affairs analyst and the executive director of the Munk School of Global Affairs at U of T.
Support Ontario's public television. Donate at tvo.org.